All right, welcome. This is Flight Path. My name is Simon. We're in the Huey and we are circling the battlefield of Waterloo. Welcome to the stream. And the idea of this stream is that we're going to be using the helicopter, using the drone to try to get a greater understanding of what occurred at the Battle of Waterloo, how the terrain affected the decisions made, so we can get a better understanding of what sometimes you write about, you read about, whether it was actually possible for that to happen at the time. A lot of the stuff from the Battle of Waterloo is written. Many of the accounts that I've read have been witness accounts, but they've been written almost sometimes 20 years afterwards. Lieutenant William Syborn was tasked to create a model of the Battle of Waterloo, and he did a lot of research at the time in around about the 1840s and trying to find out as many people's accounts. So you're talking 20 years later, these guys are trying to remember what happened, and so it's never going to be possible for them to remember all the details. You obviously get the sense maybe from their accounts. And of course, remember a lot of these accounts, especially from the leaders, the generals, the dukes, they're writing about the Battle of Waterloo through rose-tinted glasses a lot of the time, and sometimes for political reasons. They're trying to change some of the events that happened, and it happens on both sides. There's a lot of blaming of Ney, there's a lot of blaming of Grouchy and Soult, and the same with Wellington. There's a lot of blaming of different elements of his army, or the way certain units behaved. So there's a lot of sort of I'm not taking the blame stuff going on. So you kind of like have to sort of read between the lines a lot of the time when you are recounting these stories. And they obviously, a lot of the time, they'll be presenting themselves as the hero as well at the time, and that's what the sense you get with sometimes with Captain Cavalry Mercer is and his accounts. But he also does give you a very good sense of the sort of what it would be like to be in that action at the time. So we left the last episode. We were talking about the attacks and of the French Cavalry Cuirassiers up onto this ridge up here on our left. And let's just jump out here and we'll go and have a look at it. And we believe Mercer's in this area here somewhere. His position is actually described as between two Brunswick squares. And he had... it's reported that his position was in a depression with a 2.5 foot bank that the road rested on. And this lower position meant that he was firing in a position, he says, up towards the cavalry with case shot at maximum effect. So, I mean, I think you're talking about this road here. You could possibly be imagining he would have his gun on this side of this rise, possibly. You can't trust this battlefield anymore because of this monstrosity here. But you can imagine that if he did have his gun on this bank, that's the sort of thing he's sort of talking about. Now, I am... this is an account as well from a French conscript who was one of the cavalry riders. Or a French Cuirassier, sorry. not a conscript. He said, through the smoke, he says, I saw English gunners abandon their pieces. So he's riding up here, say, and all but 6 guns stationed under the road. So he talks about it being under the road. So it does suggest that they are on this this side of the road along here. And almost immediately our cuirassiers were upon the squares. So it sounds like if you imagine if you were here, you've got a Royal Horse Artillery battery firing here towards the French Cuirassiers. They wait until they're very, very close, fire their last shot, and then they'll be running back into probably a square of Brunswickers in this sort of area here, which is down below. Can never get this right, but it's it's down here, away from the ridge. Now the way that the squares are formed here are so that they're offset, so that they're not going to be firing at each other. They've almost got like the corners, like that sort of thing, so that they're not firing on each other. Here, this French cuirassier actually mentions that the fire was drawn in zigzags, and that's how I kind of imagine what that means. He describes how these gunners he thought would be cut to pieces, but they kept firing with grape, which mowed down some of these horsemen like grass. Mercer goes on to talk about how the effect of the firing, he said the mass column he described as it was difficult to force into a retreat as the mass pressed forwards. So he's talking about a column of sort of cuirassiers moving up here from this direction that way. And he says that the front ranks, the ones right in front of his gun, they were he described them as almost fighting with their own men, trying to escape the out of the way of the cannon. And so he says that their presence there fighting was almost like a spark for them to almost turn into a mob to fight each other, trying to get out of their way. And they were even using their own swords, he says, sometimes on each other. Or trying to basically fight their way out of the way of the muzzle of the gun. So that's if you were talking that sort of thing, then you're coming up here, and yes, you're probably in this sort of range, and you are like, the gun is pointing exactly at me here, and so you're trying to just move out the way as much as possible. I keep seeing these things here, by the way. Presumably they mark things on the battlefield. If anybody knows what they are, there's that one there. It's probably a path or something with some markers. I've never actually visited the battlefield itself, so if anybody has and they know what these things are, they're sometimes dotted over the there's another one there, and there's another one there. Anyway, so you get that sense then that it's the panic of the front rank of these horsemen coming up, and they've got a well-trained Royal Horse Artillery battery right in front of you, and you're actually literally fighting with your own men to try to get out of the way. He then goes on to describe how, in this way that the horses came up, it was actually the rear column, part of the column turned about, and this allowed then the front ranks to be able to pull away out of his way. The first death of Mercer's troop occurred during this attack. He says Gunner Butterworth was a number 7, or what's known as a sponger. After ramming the shot home, he got stuck in the mud, which pulled him in front of the muzzle, just as it fired. So it sounds like he's sponging, and he probably slips, and then the gun fires, and he's. They say it blows both his arms off. He makes his way back to Mont St Jean, which is, I believe, this farmhouse here, but he dies bleeding to death before he reaches the farm. And Mercer would describe as well that when the waves of cavalry retreated back, presumably what they did was they either came over the top of the ridge here to the back, or they came back down here. We're in this sort of area here, down the slope. This enables the ground battery, which I believe is now in this sort of area here, to reopen fire. And Mercer recalls that when that happened, thankfully most of his troops were safe because this bank here protected them. Okay, so let's wrap up there, I think, for this part of the story. We've got to approximately 4:30. When I mentioned William Syborn, he was the guy who was making this model, and he was trying to do all this reports to try and find out what happened. And this is a book called The Wellington's Smallest Victory, and it's all about this guy. It's a really interesting book. It's written by Peter Hofschauer, and it's basically this guy was writing, making this model. Don't quote me on this, but it was around about the 1840s, 1850s, and it's around about the time that Wellington becomes Prime Minister as well of Great Britain. Now, he starts doing this reports, and he's trying to basically find. For his model, where is the most significant point of the battle to tell the story, because he can only capture one moment. And he believes, essentially, that he wants to capture the moment of, I think it's the time when the Old Guard are advancing up here, around about that time. Anyway, he starts doing these reports. And he states something that's really, really interesting in that in his interviews of people, and he interviewed a lot of Prussians as well, that he believed that around about 4:30, which is the way we're talking around now, that there was possibly around 16,546, pretty precise, Prussians with 83 guns had arrived on the battlefield over here. So in the next stream, we're going to talk about this journey that the Prussians are making from Wavre, and see if this is feasible, and find out what's happening. And we'll find out then how the presence of the Prussians indirectly impacts the battle up here on this ridge here. And it's reported at this time, 4:30 as well, that Wellington, for the first time, hears a cannonade to the southeast. So we know that Wellington's probably in this area here, and southeast is in this direction, this way. And so he hears a cannonade, and it's the first big notification to him that the Prussians are beginning to exert an influence on the battlefield. It was a welcome sound to him, but it didn't mean immediate victory. He still needed to link up with the Prussians. But it does mean that Wellington can begin to prepare for a possible infantry attack. And it's at this time that he begins to bring up Adams' brigade of British infantry. And this brigade is it's essentially his reserve. It contains some of the best elements of the British Army. It's got the 1st Battalion of the 52nd, the 1st Battalion of the 71st, and 8 companies of the 2nd and 3rd Battalions of the 95th. And they move across, move across the Nivelles Road and form up in echelon north and east of the northeastern corner of the Hougoumont grounds. So when we talk about north, we're looking over here. This is north, this is probably the Nivelles Road. And so he's describing them moving into this area here, I believe. And this means that these light infantry, along with the batteries of artillery, can now act on the flank of the French horsemen. So we're looking at this section here. And they describe how the Hougoumont woods provided some cover from the French artillery over in this direction and possibly behind. So we're probably looking around this area here somewhere. And just to wrap it up then, so around about this time, Grouchy is now receiving Napoleon's dispatch that was timed at 1 o'clock, and Grouchy is engaging now the Prussians at the town of Wavre. So it means essentially that there is no possibility that Grouchy is going to be able to come to the aid of Napoleon, and he's not even essentially going to be able to stop the Prussians arriving by threatening their flank from this direction over here. The only thing he can now do is hold up one of the corps at Wavre, and he does that by he's engaging Thielmann's corps at Wavre. And back at the, we'll just finish now with a report that Sue mentions, and he was with Napoleon at this time back at Rosson, so we'll just fly there. And he talks about how Napoleon says, this premature movement may produce fatal results. Ney has compromised us as he did at Jena. And this is a reference to the Battle of Jena, which was a battle commenced on the morning of the 14th of October on 1806. This where the French, the Marshal Ney had completed his manoeuvres and had taken up position as ordered by Napoleon. However, once in position, Ney decided to attack the Prussian line despite having no orders to do so. which has proved to be disastrous. And it basically meant that Ney's initial assaults, although it was a success, he found himself to be overextended and was subject to heavy Prussian artillery. Napoleon mentions, or Sue says that Napoleon says, now you can take this again with a pinch of salt, but he says that Napoleon had said this has taken place an hour too soon, and what he means by that is the cavalry attack has taken place too soon. And he then says, but we must stand by what has already been done. It's and it's believed here that Napoleon has actually doubles down on what Ney has said, and he orders Kellerman to send his 2 divisions and all his cavalry to support Millard. And this is where Kellerman believes questions this order, because he thinks it's unwise to pour more troops up onto this ridge here without first getting Milhaud's exhausted divisions to move back and away. And so that might be a reason why more and more come up here and it gets quagmired. And eventually, I think it gets to the point where Kellerman thinks it's ridiculous. He moves his men up to the Hougoumont area here, and he essentially tells his carabiners, these 800 men, to halt and remain in that spot until a written order is given to him. And that meant that these cavalry are the sole reserve left. So it sounds that from that exchange, it sounds like Napoleon has accepted that Ney's made a mistake going forward, and he's doubled down on that mistake. And at the same time, then he's getting pressure from his right-hand side, and this is turning exasperates this problem in a sense. He's using up all his French cavalry reserves now. And now he's got to commit a lot of his infantry reserves over to Plancenoit to stop the Prussians from attacking his flank. Right, I think that is a good place to finish up for today. And so in summary, then, we've finished this 3rd phase of the battle. This is the attack of the French cavalry onto the British and Anglo-Allied lines, and the impact of those cavalry is weakened by the fact that there's been no infantry support and very weak artillery support. And we get to this the phase of the battle now where Napoleon is desperate because, as we say, Seibon believes that there's at least 16,000 Prussians pouring out of these woods here on his right-hand side. And so he's desperate now to try to force his way. And from down here at La Belle Alliance, or even Rossomme, which is back there, Napoleon, all he can see is that the cavalry is milling around on top of this ridge. And so we'll leave that there, and then in the next stream, which will be tomorrow on Twitch and YouTube, at around about the same time of midday in UK time. We'll fly over to Wavre, and we'll follow the Prussian advance from Wavre onto the battlefield over here on the eastern side of the battlefield. So I hope you've enjoyed that so far, and forgive my wafflings, but this is the way I do it. And we will continue our story about Waterloo tomorrow. And if you have been interested by this and you like the detail, you can go back and look at the YouTube playlist. There's over 70 episodes now following this journey all the way. And we'll continue. The idea is we'll follow Napoleon all the way back probably to St. Helena to wrap up this story. Yeah. You'll find that there's other playlists on the YouTube channel. You can see D-Day. We've done a whole series on D-Day, and you can go and have a look at that. If you have any questions, then please put them in the any comments. Even if you're watching this a year or two later, please put the comments in. Add any information. If you think you've got something interesting to say, some fact about Waterloo, then just put it in the comments, and we'll include it in the next show. And if you've got anything you want to see, again, just feel free to put it in the comments. And whenever you see this thing, don't be embarrassed. Put it in there, and we will incorporate your request into the show at some point. You become part of the production, and everything is tickety-boo. The idea of this channel is that it becomes a discussion place, and hopefully we'll get like-minded people who are interested in flying and in history. Right, well, I've waffled a lot so far, so and I will leave that there today. I hope you have a good rest of the day. Watch the football and all that, and I will see you tomorrow. Good luck.